Welcome to Healed, Whole, Called, the podcast where stories of trauma meet the healing power of Jesus. Each week we journey with women who have walked through pain, wrestled through the process, and now stand in the promise of who God called them to be. This is more than storytelling. This is sacred space, where honesty is welcome, healing is possible, and hope is alive. And now, here's your host, Wendy Melrose.
Hello, everyone. Today's guest is living proof that God can take what was shattered and make it whole again. Tammy Schaefer has walked through unimaginable pain, surviving sexual and emotional abuse as a child, entering foster care at 15, and aging out of the system, feeling angry, broken, and alone. But God never abandoned her. He pursued her with relentless love until she could see her life through his eyes. Today, Tammy stands as a testimony of restoration and grace, a wonderful woman transformed by the broken and angry to be healed and whole. And the beautiful part, God is still writing her story and it keeps getting better. So, Tammy, tell us about what God is doing in and through you as you write your book.
I wrote a book back in 2011 and it was called I Do Believe, Help Me With My Unbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically the story up until that point of the healing that I had received. Largely from, I had some inner healing, and then I went to Celebrate Recovery, and I had, and I did some other, it was these different layers of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew from walking in that, I felt like God started me on my journey to that deeper revelation of what forgiveness really is. And that we don't have the ability to have forgiveness without him. Like he has to give us the ability to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're willing to let go of all of the stuff that we feel is our right in those situations when we've been wounded or hurt by others, when we release all of that, which is what the Bible talks about, if you will be freely forgiven when you forgive.
Right.
So I started on this path of, the story of Joseph, because he was, hated by his brothers and they threw him in a pit.
Right.
And then he ends up in Potiphar's house, and then he's like in this, elevated, and then something happens and he ends up in prison. And
Right.
but throughout it all, I'm sure in his flesh, he was like, oh my God, am I ever gonna get out of this?
Right.
Trusted God with the outcome. And ultimately, and I only recently got a hold of this truth. There's Genesis 45:7. He actually tells his brothers that God used what they did to send him ahead of them to save them.
Right.
So where we look at it so many times is, oh, well, God just allowed it. No, God ordained them to do that. That's how God got him to where he needed to be to save them. He actually, in a way, orchestrated that event to happen the way.
Yeah.
So when you look at that in light of things that happen, it's not that they happen to us, they happen for us.
Right.
And it's for our purpose that we were created for.
Right. What's interesting too is that had they not thrown him into the pit, the Lord probably had a different way to get him there. But he used the pit. We don't know that for sure. It's not in scripture.
But, it's the same thing with Judas. If Judas had not betrayed Jesus, we
Right.
would be here.
Right. It's so true.
Actually fulfilled the purpose he was created for.
Right.
Well, it's like, that's where I started. After I reached this, this place, I wasn't completely free, but I knew, it was like, I guess I tell people there's true freedom available to all of us, but it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through these layers of it.
Right.
But it's really for us is being postured in that place of being willing to forgive. Yeah, it's interesting because I I had that forgiveness. And then, but I still, when I would go home, I'd still feel like that little girl that, my father had sexually abused me.
Mm-hmm.
And they put me in, I ended up going into a foster home because
Okay.
the state took me away because my parents ended up putting me in the hospital and having me have all these tests, these neurological tests, trying to say that basically they had, that they were abusing me just by, they were trying to make excuses for why I would share this. Like why,
Oh yeah, the rationalizing their behavior to make
right,
it seem like you're the crazy one.
right. So, and the thing was, when I look back, um, it took me a while to see it from that side, my mom's perspective of being afraid. She had two other children, so she had three children. How was she going to leave and take care of these children all on her own? And I can't imagine thinking about, okay, your husband actually slept with your daughter, like all of that. Like, how would that impact you? And you wouldn't want to know that, even if you did, you wouldn't want to know. Um, and there was, my dad growing up, my mom was not safe emotionally. She was very angry and she just didn't have that natural mother instinct, which a lot of women don't. Um, and then I was daddy's girl.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was like the one I always felt safe with. So then when all of this occurred, and then you mix in that we were attending church every Sunday, I was going to a Christian school.
Wow.
So, for a long time, when I actually shared about my abuse, the school actually ended up kicking me out, which is why I ended up, yes.
No.
So in my mind, my 15-year-old mind, this was God rejecting me. And, so I spent a long time just hating God and knowing that he had a hold of me regardless of how angry I was.
Oh, sure.
I couldn't escape him no matter how
Right.
I,
Leave me alone, Lord. The Lord goes, I go after the one. I go after the one. You're the one.
and I couldn't even be angry with my parents until actually I had my daughter. Then I thought, how could you, like, I would die for this, my daughter, like, so that's when all of this stuff surfaced and I was able to start that journey toward healing
Mm,
and understand that God, that wasn't God, that, not that those experiences, again, they were happening for me, not to me,
mm-hmm,
because there's a much bigger plan at play,
mm-hmm.
bigger than just me. So,
Right.
um, as I went through, inner healing and got some really in-depth healing because I had struggled with bipolar disorder as a result of all the trauma and uh, basically wanted to kill myself all the time. It was something I thought about all the time.
Sure, sure.
So I, once I realized that wasn't normal,
Yeah, yeah.
I was able to get inner healing and like release that. And I mean, in a second, the lie was exposed and it was gone.
Nice. And so bipolar was gone too?
Um, I think it's still there, but it's not like it's not, doesn't have control over me. And
Sure.
normal bipolar is not, it's like ADHD. All those things are not weaknesses. We look at them as weaknesses. They're actually the way we were created, is the way our brain works. And it
Okay.
works differently than other people's now, but it wasn't working to destroy me anymore, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, it does.
Still
It
had
does.
was in the way I had to learn that the way I thought it wasn't a negative. It was just the way God created me. I just think differently.
Yeah.
So, but my superpower, that's one of the things that gives me I can do things that other people can't because I get this different way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but it was all of the devastating effects from it were gone. I never thought about committing suicide. ever again. Like that never entered my mind. Which is a miracle because I think I would have made it if I hadn't finally got rid of that. I think I probably would have committed. There's several people in our family that had committed suicide and or tried. Um,
Yeah.
so it was something in the family for sure.
Sure. Well, it's a generational, almost kind of like a generational suicidal death curse.
Yeah, I don't believe in as I've grown in my journey, I don't believe in curse. I don't believe that we're cursed, but I do believe that we open the door for certain
Sure.
things and we have a propensity possibly,
Sure.
if chains aren't broken,
Sure.
say, I was there was sexual abuse all over our family. My grandparents had 10 children. My grandfather was abused by his mother.
Mm-hmm.
I think it went back generations. And
Sure.
there was there was stuff that happened with aunts and uncles and then their children. And I was the first one to speak up.
Wow.
And
So did you stop it with your generation?
it, God, because God finally, it was like it was exposed and it was broken,
Nice.
because otherwise, before that, it had all been secret and kept in the closet, basically.
Sure.
And now I look back and realize that was the Holy Spirit that was, that brought that about and opened it up so that it could be broken.
Sure.
Um, so things aren't perfect, there's still, but it was finally my daughter unfortunately had suffered some effects before I actually was able to really break that off, but now it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went through a lot of all of that and I wrote that book because I was like, oh, I want everybody to be free. And God was like, no, we're going to wait a while. You're not ready to,
Ah!
like I was ready. I mean, at that point, my husband and I weren't really getting along. And I thought, I'm going to go do this mission. And well, if he doesn't want to do it, that's fine. He can just sit at home. And God stopped me in my tracks pretty quickly and said, if you don't have a marriage, you won't have a ministry.
Oh, that's good.
So at that same time, he got a job on the road doing hotel reconstruction, and I was left alone. And my daughter had gone to YWAM. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
familiar.
I do know why we am. Well, they've got one in Colorado. Is that where she went?
We did the one in Texas, which
Okay.
would be the base, the hub.
Uh-huh.
But so she had gone and did that actually right around the same time that I wrote my book. So I'd always wanted to go, but I felt like, oh, my husband won't go, so I can't. So when he went on the road, I just felt like God said, now's your chance. Like he's not here. So I did. I went out and I took a Crossroads discipleship training school. And um, after that was over, that was like a 5-month period. I went home. I felt like God said, go home, get rid of everything and come back. And I had no money. My husband at the time was not getting paid where he was working.
Oh my gosh.
And there was no money. And I thought, this is crazy. But I knew he told me that. So
Yeah.
we went home. We packed up everything. My daughter had to find her own place to live because she had been living with us. And we packed up everything. I went back. I had no money until 2 days before the school started. And my school leader said, you have to have half the money before school will start. 2 days before, somebody that had roomed with me in the previous school came to me and said, God told me to give you this money. It's $1,800. Here you go.
Was that the half you needed?
It's the half I needed.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So and about a month later, hurricane came and took out the trailer we were living in. So if I left my stuff there, we would have lost everything.
No way.
Was thinking, oh, God didn't tell me that. God told me that.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, so during that time, I had a tragedy in a family I went back home to Pennsylvania. I had a foster home, so I was in the foster home from 15 to 18. But I never felt like I belonged with anybody because I didn't belong with my biological family. And I was never allowed to be adopted. So I didn't really belong with my foster family. I was just an accessory, I felt like. But I still maintained a relationship. So my foster brother committed suicide. So I was the training phase of the YWAM school. That was the school of evangelism. That was 12 weeks. At 11 weeks was when this happened, and I left. I went to Pennsylvania. All the money came in for my classroom phase, which was the $3,400 or $3,600, but nothing came in for my outreach, not one penny. But at that time, I was able to go and be with my husband on the road. And then I think, I don't know if we talked about this before, but that's when I got into the virtual assistant position. I kind of fell into that job with his boss.
Hmm.
So, I had at that point, I just kind of put my book away. I put the possibility of a speaking career, all of that stuff. I just put it away because I thought, that's over. God just did that to bring me to where I was.
Yeah.
But a year later, in 2018, my father, he was full-time RVing, and we were in Alabama, my husband and I, doing a job. My sister texted me, my sister who never flies anywhere, never stays in hotels, nothing, texted me and said, I'm flying to Florida. Dad's in Orlando. He's in the hospital. We don't think he's going to make it through the night. And I told my husband, and he's like, you need to go. Cause like I knew, like, I thought, okay, this is it. He's going to die. I've prayed the whole drive from Alabama to Orlando. I drove through the night and I just prayed and I said, God, like Hezekiah, like give me more time. I'm not ready. There's more. There's more that needs to happen in our relationship. I'm not ready. Please don't let him die. Please, I got there in the morning and he's like, hey, how's it going? It's like his kidneys were at 20% when they took him into the hospital. They thought he was gone. And he made a full recovery within days.
What?
Yes.
This is your biological father.
Biological father.
Wow.
So he ended up, my sister drove back with him. There's a whole there, but anyway, she drove in the RV with him back home. They convinced him to stay up there. And through that time, it was like we were rebuilding our relationship. So I would call him and I would check in to see how things were going. But still, when I went there, I still felt like that little girl. So last August, my sister called me to tell me my dad was in the hospital again. Actually, it might have been July, and they didn't know what was wrong.
This year or the year before?
Last year.
Okay.
So, I I don't know. I felt like I had a check in my spirit, like this was a big deal, like this was different. Um, in August, in August, she called me and said he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and they gave him 3 to 6 months. So because of my business, I could leave, and my husband was very gracious. I went to Pennsylvania. I stayed. I had 2 sisters, and the youngest sister I'm a closer with her, and I don't know, just she's always been that person that everything just rolls off of her, and she doesn't hold anything. She just, with her family, she loves everyone in her family, and she doesn't hold anything against anybody. And so we've kind of stayed connected. And my other sister, her and I had some turmoil, but she actually invited me to come and stay at her house. I stayed for a month.
Wow.
God just peeled so much stuff off. And it was like through this whole experience, God restored my whole family to me in a way that was like none of the other stuff had happened. Like none of the separation had happened. None of the abuse had happened. And I got to stay with my sister I guess I came back in November. I came back home to Florida, be with my husband for a little. Then in January, my sister called me and said that my father was going into hospice. And I knew I was supposed to go. So somebody gave me airfare. I went back there and I got there and my dad was in this wheelchair smoking a cigarette outside when I got there. Like, I thought, okay, here we go again. Like this had happened so many times.
Are you dying or not? I rush around this country for you and you're still here.
We had the most amazing weeks with him. Like the one thing he could do, we had to get him in a wheelchair. He couldn't do anything for himself, basically. So we would have to get him in and out of the wheelchair. And we just took care of him. And the one thing that we could do is take him to the casino. I know this sounds crazy, but it's what he wanted to do. So that's what we would do. And
it's a way to play games and it's expensive.
And he would go play cards and we would play slots, just hang out and talk. Her and I really got to talk and get even closer. And more and more, he was just my dad. Like, we were taking care of him, cleaning him up at times, it was just, and he walked this out with such grace. Like being in this position, going from somebody who could never sit still, who was always worked 3 jobs, just did all kinds of crazy stuff. And then he wasn't able to, and he was so gracious. And he told me, he said, I'm not praying for God to heal me. I'm just praying that I don't linger a long time.
Sure.
And now he had watched some of his brothers and sisters just suffer a very long time with cancer and not, it wasn't good.
And he knew Jesus at this point as well?
He had known Jesus all his life. This is what I tell people, like if you think about David's life, David was a man after God's own heart.
Sure.
He murdered a man.
Yeah. I mean, he slept with another woman.
Right.
Yeah.
And then killed her husband so he could have, basically.
Yeah.
Cover up, So it's not that my father, if it wouldn't have been for my father, I wouldn't have known the Lord.
Yeah.
So this was all very complex, but when I look back, I realize how God was in all of it.
Yeah.
And so we had these amazing 2 weeks. We were trying to get my father into hospice, like a long-term care, because we knew we weren't nurses. We couldn't maintain taking care of him.
Sure.
So they called my sister on a Monday, or no, it was a Tuesday, and said that they had gotten approval to get him in the next day. But once they took him, we wouldn't be allowed to take him anywhere anymore. Like we could bring his dog in to visit him, but we weren't allowed to take him anywhere, and he wasn't allowed to smoke anymore. And so he said, "That's great. I'm ready to go." He said, "But I just want to go to the casino one more time." So we took him to the casino and we were there for a couple hours and he had a stroke.
Oh, at the casino?
At the casino.
Oh, man.
Which ended up being a blessing in disguise, because what we didn't know is hospice was kind of playing a game with us.
Oh.
But we had to get him an ambulance. They took him to the hospital. We went through some awful stuff, but as a result, they weren't taking care of him. And when my sister went back in the morning, like I told her, we need to go home and get some rest because we have to deal with whatever's happening in the morning. And she went in the morning and they had left him laying in his crap all night, and they weren't
At the hospice hospital. At the regular hospital.
So, because of all of that, once the people in the morning realized what was going on, they knew they had to do something. So they got him into the hospice right away with a very minimal charge, all of that. But it was because of all the stuff that had happened.
Mm.
So again, the things we think are happening to us aren't always happening to us, they're happening for us. So they got him into hospice. That was Tuesday. Yes. So Monday was the day we got the call. Tuesday, they got him into hospice. And we just kept coming and staying. My sister stayed with him. I went home to his apartment, took care of his dog, and then would come back.
Mm-hmm.
He was not, he was kind of there, but not too much. And Saturday he passed. And
And
my
so so that was in the January, or was that like in the spring at that point?
that was February 8th was when he passed.
Wow.
So my the only thing my dad wanted was didn't want to linger long and didn't want to be a burden on us.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted somebody, a good home for his dog.
Aw.
He wanted, you know? He had this beagle named Molly. She's adorable. And we were like trying to figure out how are we going to find a home for this dog, you know? But anyway, the only thing I wanted, because, you know, I never felt like at that point, I could pray for him and for healing because this was the time. This was the time. So I just prayed that my sisters and I would be the ones that were there with him when he passed. And that's what happened. That whole day, everybody was there visiting. When they left, the nurses came in to turn him, and that was it.
Wow.
It was just the three of us there with him. And so then then it was the aftermath. We had to take care of all the things.
And your mom had already passed, or she a living?
Mom and my dad were divorced.
Oh, okay.
So they still got together every Sunday for dinner. They still, so my mom, I know there was a lot of abuse there. And I think God's got a hold of her. I've been praying for her and God's opened the door there. Our relationship is connecting again. But I know she wouldn't have wanted to be there
Yeah.
but I was so thankful that we were able to be there. And I just didn't want him to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we got all the arrangements set up and I was doing a PowerPoint presentation for the service we were going to have. And that is when it was like he came in and everything, it was like he just took and pulled out everything that was related to the abuse. It was like it was completely vanished, like it never happened. And I had nothing but love for both of my parents. Like it was it was so dramatic that I couldn't even explain what happened. Like it was just like all of a sudden my whole identity had changed. And really what happened was I was returned. Like everything was returned and I was whole. Like this was something only God could do. Like I
Mm-hmm.
could do it. We can't, forget things. Um,
Yeah.
so I came home and for a whole month I couldn't even talk. I just sat and I was like, I don't even know how to be this new person. I'm a new person. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have none of that stuff that's always been attached to me. It's all gone. And finally, it was about a month. My friends were getting worried about me, like I'm not isolating. I just am spending time with God and just trying to figure out what do I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And finally I said, you know what it's like? My husband's grandmother had brain tumor the size of a small orange between her brain and her skull.
Yeah.
And when they took it out, she had to learn how to walk and see and all over again because of where it was in the brain. And I was like, that's what this feels like. Like all of a sudden, I had this thing that was my identity and it's gone. And now I have to learn how to do all this, live and walk like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad. It's just like a whole new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I just started throwing stuff in. I do Trello. So I throw stuff in Trello and, um, I got the release about a month and a half ago to start writing a book. So, because I want to write that from the perspective and help people understand that the healing process is not something you can get. Sorry, my kitty.
Fine. You're fine. I'm surprised. My dogs must be sleeping. They're not on me.
The healing process is something that's very unique and individual to all of us. And you don't get it from a program. God uses those things, I believe. But each one of us, we get unraveled individually. God knows exactly how to unravel us and bring us back to the original blueprint of how he designed us before that stuff got on us and those lies were planted in our head. So that's the journey now, to just start writing, have him lead that and share with people how to walk through that process and be prepared for being willing to forgive, because that's honestly, that's all we have to do is be willing, and God will orchestrate that process.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing your heart with us today. To our listeners, remember, your story isn't over. You are not disqualified by what you've been through or even going through. With Jesus Christ, you are healed, whole, and called. Till next time.
Thank you for joining us on Healed, Whole, Called. If this episode spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know that healing is possible, purpose is real, and God is still restoring. And before you go, visit resilience-press.com and download your free copy of Get to the Point of Self-Publishing, Wendy's guide to help you move from stuck to published with clarity and confidence. You'll find it in the free resources section. Until next time, stay rooted in truth, covered in grace, and always moving toward the promise.